This is Gemara in Gittin Daf Samach Gimel, and we're holding on the bottom of Samach Beis Amid Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. Says the Gemara Itmar, Havo li Giti. If a woman tells the shliach, bring for me a get, and again we remind ourselves there's 2 types of shluchim that can be made. There's a shliach lehailach and a shliach lekabbalah. There's a shliach that the woman can tell the agent, please go and be my agent to do what? To take the get and bring it back for me. A shliach lehoilacha. And then there's another type of shliach, which is shliach lekabbalah, in which the woman tells the shliach, please accept for me the get. Fundamental, incredible difference. Is the shliach accepting the get and in that moment the woman being divorced? Or no, does the shliach have to take the get and bring it to the woman? So we have a case over here, Itmar Havali Giti, in which the woman told the shliach, please accept the get for me. But the shliach told the husband, V'ishtecha Amar, and the shliach tells the husband a different story. The shliach says, Iskabel Ali Giti, that the woman said, I should accept the get for her. Vehu Amar, and the husband says, I'm not getting involved in what happened. Heiloch Kamash Amar, take it as she has said. What is the din? So really she said shliach lahilacha, the shliach said shliach lekabbalah, and the baal said, leave me out of this one, whatever she says. Amar Rav Nachman Ravu Amar Rav, afilu igia get liyada einoi migureshes. She is not divorced, even if it actually gets to her hands, which is what she said. Shliach lahilacha. Even such a case does not work. Why? Says the Gemara, must be because the husband is relying upon the words of the shliach. The shliach is not really a shliach lekabbalah, and therefore she is never going to be divorced. Because if when the husband said, hey look, take it, and he really meant to rely upon her words, then at least when the get reaches her end, she should be divorced, which clearly is not the case. Amar Ravashi says, and so says the Gemara, we see from here, Adibura Didei Kasamach, they're relying on the shlichos, the word of the shliach. Amar Ravashi, Hachi Ashta, says Ravashi, what are you talking about? Bishlama, top of Samal Kimlam and Aleph, Bishlama I Itmar Ibcha, if the reverse happened. What's the reverse? Speaks out the Gemara. Hiskabel Giti, that what the woman said to the shliach, please accept for me the get. Ve'ishtecha amra, and the shliach says that she said what? Havali Giti, take the get from me, bring the get from me. Ve'hu amar, and the husband said, Eilach k'mash amar, take it as she said. Ve'hu amar, Rav Nachman Ravu amar Rav. And on this case, in this case, indeed, when the get reaches her hand, she is divorced. If that was the case, Alma, then I'd have a raya, adibura dido de kasamich, that relying upon her words that the shliach is a shliach likabbalah, and therefore once the get reaches liyadai, to the shliach's hands, not to the woman's hands. Already when the shliach texted, he's a shliach lekabbalah. At that moment they are divorced. Inami, or another case, liyada, or if the din were to have been that the get reaches her hand, she's divorced. That would be a raya dibur didei kasamach on his word. Elohacha, but in our case, this is Rav Ashi's kasha. Mishum de akre shliach l'shlichuse ligamri. The reason is because the shliach completely uprooted and undid his shliach. Who da'amar shliach l'kabbalah havina lahoilacha loy havina. The reason is because what is the shliach saying? He is saying, Likabbalah havina. I will be a shliach likabbalah lehoilacha loy havina. I will not be a shliach lehoilacha. That's the reason why she's never divorced. But it's not a raya that we're relying on anyone's words. So the Gemara is proving that not in every case do we have a proof as to what the din will be. If the case was that she said iskabel and he said havu, so he's going and he's bringing the get and not only accepting it, fine, then we would have a raya. But in our case, she said havu, and he said iskabel. What is he showing? He's showing I only want to be a shliach to accept the get. I do not want to be a shliach to bring the get. Therefore, there is no raya. Let's bring a raya. If someone, and now we're flipping the case. Now we're approaching this from the husband's perspective. If he says, accept this get from my wife, or take this get from my wife, so the husband come back out. Says the Gemara, if he wants, he can back out. If he doesn't want to, have a get. And the clear implication that it is a get, says the Gemara, why is that true? The husband does not have the power to create such a shlichus. So rather, what's the reason? It must be once the husband is trying clearly to divorce his wife, what do we say? We say that really, you know what the husband intends? He doesn't even know what he intends. But you know what he intends? However I can get this done, I just want out. So says the Gemara, perhaps in our case, so maybe it's going to be the same din in our case. Therefore, Nachamal says the Gemara. Therefore, says the Gemara, we do not have a raya. Says the Gemara, Hachi Hashta, Nachamal, what are you talking about? We're on the second wide line. Samach Gimel Amid Alpha. Really, over there, the husband, of course, knows there's no such thing as him creating a shliach lekabal. When the husband gives it to the get, gives it to the shliach, he's clearly giving it as a shliach lehayilacha. But hacha, in our case, in our case, perhaps he's just making a mistake, and therefore there is no raya. So Amar Rava, continues Rava Tashema. The Gemara again tries to prove. Ketana Shamar Eskabali Giti Eina Gat Achigia Get Liyada. The halacha is if a ketana tries to make a shliach like Kabbalah, it does not work until the get reaches her hands. Says the Gemara V'amai, why is she divorced? The ketana never made this shliach into a shliach le'halacha. She never told this person to accept the get for me. Ela amrinan. So says the Gemara, what must the reason be? You know what the reason must be? Since the husband wants to divorce her, must be that he says, let her be divorced any way possible. And the Gemara has a similar rebuttal. However, and again, we keep on seeing that it's hard to compare to our case. So Tashema, the Gemara continues trying to ask on Rav Nachman. Really, what happens? A wife says, bring the get. And the shliach said that she said Hiskabel. This is the first case we started with today. Hiskabel ligiti v'shchamer ligiti, or in the reverse. V'omer, and that's the second case we had today. V'omer, and the husband says hoilich v'tenla, not heilich kamasha erza, but rather the husband says hoilich, take it and give it to her, ten law and give it to her. Zachi law, the halacha is, or if the husband says acquire it for her, v'skabel law, or accept it for her, ratzalachzar yachzor, he's able to back out. My love, so seemingly we have to line up the cases that Kabbalah is for Kabbalah, halacha is for halacha, and yet so therefore it's the Kasha and Rav Nachman, because we see that this is a kasha on Rav Nachman, because Rav Nachman said the get would not work. And in this case, we've seen clearly the get does work. Says the Gemara, Loi Kabbalah, halacha, halacha, Kabbalah. Ask the Gemara, what? The Kabbalah, halacha, v'chivat gita, liyadei, la'alter la'vigita. Send right away, shv'yashech li Kabbalah. Shmas mina, d'vur dideka samech, hachi ashta, asa kam lehelach, kemasha amra. Hacha mi kam lehelach, kemasha amra. You never said that, and therefore again, the cases are not comparable, and therefore we do not have a kasha on Rav Nachman. So numerous attempts, but nothing conclusive that we're able to ask on Rav Nachman. And we continue 10 lines on the bottom. First one on Nishamra says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Hiskabel Ali Giti. If what happens, if a woman says, accept the get from me, Vishchamra, and the Shliach says, Hiskabel Giti, just like she said. V'hu Amar, and the husband says, Hoilich v'tenlo, take it and give it to her. Zachil, or acquired for a Hiskabel, or accepted for a Ratzalachzu, Lo Yachsir. Can't back out. So Sheikh Likabala, the moment he gets it, it's over. Rav Nasan Aimer says, Rav Nasan, Hoilich v'tenlo, if he says, take it and give it to her, then Ratzalachzu Yachsir. But Zachlav is Kabbalah, Ratzalachzu lo Yachsir. So Rav Nasan's a middle ground. And Rav Nasan differentiates. If he says Hoilech, then he's able to back out because the husband is in essence saying, I don't want you, the Shliach, to accept it from my wife. Hoilech, take it and give it to her. But if he said Zachi or Iskabel, then not. Rabbi Yomer says, Rabbi Bekula, in all the cases in Ratzalachzar, Loy Yachzar Aval Im Amar Loy. But if the husband articulates clearly, no, I don't want you to accept it for her. Rather take it and give it to her, then Ratzalachzar Yachzar. That's how the Bryce ends off. Seemingly 3 different cases, but of course, case 3 and case 1, the Tanakama and Rabbi are eerily similar, which indeed 4 lines from the bottom is what the Gemara asks. Rabbi, Hainu Tanakama, what is the difference? So of course we'll understand that there was an extra line that Rabbi said, and that's going to be one of the terutzim. Answers the Gemara, Iba Yisayim Yavshi Aslashminan, when he explains the Yavshi. Iba Yisayim Al Kamashlan Man Tanakama Rabbi. Or we could say that, what the Gemara is proving to us, the Shita of the Tanakama is indeed the Shita of Rabbi. Continues the Gemara, Iba Yeluhu. Heilach l'Rav Nasan, Kezachi Dami, I love Kezachi Dami. According to Rav Nasan, what is the status of Heilach? Not Hoilech, but Heilach, this get is for you. What is the status? Is that like the husband saying Zachi or not? Again, Rav Nasan differentiated Hoilech, he could back out. Zachi Iskabel, you cannot. So says the Gemara, Hoilech means take it and give it to her. What is Heilach, which means this is for you? So Tashema, the Gemara tries to prove 2 lines from the bottom. Hoimer Iskabel, get zelishti. If someone says, accept this gift from my wife, Hoilech, get zelishti, or take this gift from my wife. Ratzalachzar Yachzar, Isha Shamrav, she says Iskabel Giti Ratzalachzar, then Lo Yachzar. Then you can't back out. Why? Because the woman is making the Shliach Shech Likabal. We turn over to Samuel Kimmel Amid Beis, continues the Gemara. My love, Behelach. Rav Nasan, that we want to interpret this brisa, that even though the simple wording of the brisa was hoilech, we're saying l'chayra, we could say that this is a case of a brisa referring to heilach, and we'll say this is a din of Rav Nasan, as the Tab Rashi speaks out, Kataniba. For Rav Nasan, that he differentiated by a hoilech, that if the husband says hoilech, take this and give it to her, then the shliach is the halacha to bring it to her. But heilach maybe not. Says the Gemara, no, raya loy b'hoilech v'Rabbi. It could be a case of hoilech, and it's going with the Rabbi. So Tashema, the Gemara tries to prove again what is the status of heilach l'Rav Nasan. Lefi kachem amar lo yabal. If the husband says he have shit to kabul, Elo, hoilich v'tenlo, take it and give it to Ratzalachzar Yachzar. Time, Odamer Yavshi, the reason is he said it's impossible. Holoyamer Yavshi, Ratzalachzar Yachzar, he can't back out. My love, Behelach, V'Rav Nasan, and we have a raya. Loi b'hoilich v'Rabbi. Tashmatem number 3. Hoilich, and again, of course, the point that's not clear is these brises aren't speaking out the precise wording of the case, which is what leaves it open to interpretation as the Gemara is trying to figure out whether this is Rav Nasan or Rabbi, Heilach or Hoilech. Again, Hoilech clearly means take this and give it to her. Hoilech shech lehoilacha. Heilach is the point under contention. Is it the same thing as Hoilech, that according to Rav Nasan you could indeed back out or not? Tashema says Gemara, Hoilech gets alishti ratzalachzar yachzer. Heilech gets alishti ratzalachzar lo yachzer. So the price differentiates clearly between the two. Man sham mislei damer b'hoilech ratzalachzar yachzer. Who is this one that differentiates? It says in the case of a hoilech, if you want to back out, you can back out. It says the Gemara of Nasan. V'gam arbeilach ratzalachzar lo yachzer shmami no heilech kezachi dami shmami no. This is a gavaldik araya because this price says clearly that the case of hoilech hoylech, you could, yes, back out, and heilech not. So clearly this is Rav Nosson, that hoylech, you could back out, heilech, you cannot. Therefore we have a Gavaldik Raya, that heilech is the same thing as zechidami, as acquired, and therefore you cannot back out, and that is a conclusive Raya. Says the Gemara Itmar. Now we figured out what hoylech is, we figured out what heilech is. Now, his kabel ali giti. What happens if the woman says the shliach, accept this get from me, but the shliach says v'ishcha amra is kabel ligiti, the same thing. Ve'u amar, and the husband says hoylech v'tenla. So the shliach says kabbalah, the woman said kabbalah, but the husband said take it and give it to her. What do we do now? Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. About 20 lines down, the first one line is Huna. Nasa shaluchai ushlocha v'chai letzes. So this is a case that we'll call is confusion, is that we have a shliach being a mixed animal. On one hand, he's a shech likabala for the isha. On the other hand, he's a shech lahaylacha for the baal. So we don't know what to do. What's the halacha in such a scenario? Chalet says there's no real divorce, so if he would die, we don't know if you could do yibum. There's still some sort of connection, so you have to do chalitza. Says the Gemara, Lemimra, this clearly implies the misafkli the Rav. Rav is unsure. Yoyler kizachi dami, lav kizachi dami. I asked the Gemara, but we learned take this $100 to this guy. I'm obligated to him. So we see clearly, hoylech is a form of saying take it and give it to him. Answers the Gemara, Hasam Safek Memoina Lekula. That's the case of Mammon. So by Mammon, we always say if we're not sure, we go Lekula, but Hach in our case is Safek Yisura, and therefore it would be a Chumrah, and therefore there is no Ra'yo. Says the Gemara, once we're on the topic of a Sheikh Kabbalah, Amar Rav, a little bit of a sidebar sugya. The woman cannot create a Sheikh Kabbalah from the shliach of the husband. The woman, shliach Kabbalah, can only act as a shliach Kabbalah, can only act as a messenger to accept the get if the messenger is taking it from the husband. But if the messenger is taking it from the shliach, it cannot work. Rav Chanina Amar comes to Rav Chanina, he says, no, Isha Oisa Shliach Lekabula Gita Miyad Shliach Baila could indeed become a shliach to take it from the shliach. My time, oh dear Rav. Why does Rav say no and Rav Chanina say yes? It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to have a shliach except for the shliach. Therefore, it says Rav, it doesn't work. For the concern that one might think that you could have a kinyan and a chatzar taking from someone else, which is not true. So it's a gezeira dirabanan. My beinayu, 10 lines from the white lines. That she went first and created this shliach. Meikara, hau gavra, meikara. That she went first and created this shliach at first. So this case is no reason to make a gezeira about chatzar ba adam me'achar mikan, but it still is a bizayon to the Baal. And we wrap up today's share with a story. Hau gavra the shadla gittin the bisu is a man who said to get to his wife azal shlicha ashkicha ki yasva v'kal lisa. The shliach found lisha, that she was sitting there kneading dough. Amar la, and the shliach says to her, hey loch gitech, here is your get. Amrole, the woman responds, lehave biyadach, let it be in your hands, meaning you accept it on my behalf. Amar Nachman imisel Rav Chanina avdila uvda. If imisel Rav Chanina, if Avdi uvda, then I would say like Rav Chanina and say that it is indeed a good divorce. Amar lei Rava responds, imisel Rav Chanina, what avda uvda? Haloi chazra shlichos isla bal. There's a basic idea in all of shlichus that the shlich has to have the ability to report back to the sender and tell him that he fulfilled the shlichus. But over here, if the shliach la'ilacha, the shliach of the husband to bring the get, is then transformed into a shliach likabala of the isha, then the shliach does not have the ability to go back to the husband if the shlichus should not work. So shalchua likamed Rav Ami, and they sent this thing to Rav Ami, and shalach lei, and the last narrow line, Rav Ami responded, that since the shlichus cannot go back to the husband, the shlichus is not considered a shlich of the woman, and therefore she is not divorced. For Rav Chia bar Abba Amar, he says, Nisyashiv b'davar. Let's understand. Hadir shluchua kamid Rav Chiya bar Rava. Amar kol ani shalchu lav azli keichna misafke leila didhu. And Rav Chiya bar Rava responded, kol ani shalchu lev azli. Why do you keep on asking the same kasha? Keichna misafke leila didhu. Just as you are in doubt about this case, hachanami, we are as well. Misafke lon ledidan. We are also not sure what the din is. And therefore, in the third wide line, have a davar sheba'erva, what's the halacha? Chayletzes, therefore you're going to need chalitza. So the Gemara concludes that we can't have a clear raya either way. Therefore, what is the halacha? You need to do chalitza. And concludes the Gemara, Rav Yov, there was a story of Etzechua. Rav Yitzhak bar Shmuel bar Marta, get v'chalitza tarti? Yes. Get mechayim, if they're still alive, you need another get, v'chalitza, la'achar misa, and you're going to need chalitza after the death. And the truth is, we will spend another moment, and let's wrap it up with another two cases. On the fifth wide line of Samach Gimel Amud Beis, have a Kari Le Nafasa. There was a woman who was called Nafasa. Azal Sadi witnesses came, Kotov Tif Asa, and they wrote Tif Asa, not the right name in the get. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta Mishmei Derav. Also Eidim Shlichusan. The Eidim did their shlichus. They wrote the get that's incorrect. Therefore, they can't write a new get. They were commissioned to write a get, and it's too late. Maskevla Rava asks Rava, what? Were they told to write a shard? Vahavula, of course not. They were told to write a get, and this is not a get. So very good. You're saying that they did what they had to do, but they didn't do what they had to do because they wrote the wrong name. So Ella Amar Rabba rather comes like Rabba, and he says Vadai for sure. Because if Zadigita Malia could get Vav and it was lost, then also Eidim Shlichusan. Then we could apply this rule. They did what they could do, and they're not able to do it again. But in our case, where they messed up the name, that would not be the case. Maskav Rav Nachman continues the Gemara and asks me, what do you mean? Even in the case where they lost, it should be the same issue. Did he tell them write again and put it in their pocket? Of course not. He said write again and give it. Elam Rav Nachman Kaisvim and Naistin Afilu Mei upon him the Shluchim are allowed to continuously write it and give it until they get it right, because that is what they're commissioned to do. What's the halach? The husband told people, write a get and give it to my shliach to deliver the get. The shliach then loses the get. What is the halach? They write another get. Saluke saliklahu. Those that wrote it did their portion, so they're done. Or perhaps he just didn't want to bother them, meaning we're trying to figure out, why did the husband only tell them write the get and I give it to the other guy to give it? Is it because I only want you to write a get and finish? So he wrote the get, he lost the game over. Or is the reason, no, he just didn't want to bother them to give it, but of course, if it's lost, they should write it again. Ravina Ravashi, v'yoylech la mahu, says Ravina to Rav Ashi, if he says, and let the second agent take the get, what is the halacha? Is you allowed to continue writing it? And again, says the Gemara Teiku, we don't have a kasha answer to either of these questions. Toli v'soli v'heli v'yadcha kula and lashon kabbalah, and these are all lashonis of kabbalah of accepting the get. Tol take v'sa, lift, v'yeheli, and be in your hand. These are all forms of saying kabbalah to accept it, and therefore you cannot back out or to lachzer lo yachzer, because it's a kabbalah, it's strictly kabbalah to accept the get. You cannot back out. We'll pick it up from the mission the next year. B'siyata dishmaya.